Purple eye in the canyon. That's where
We did this. The movie's called Band Slam. We were in the Sleep at the Wheel studio, Bismo. I feel like for like 2 months recording it. So the director and the songwriter, like younger songwriter, wrote all the songs, and then they had the actors play everything. So every actor was a musician, which was cool. And then it was Vanessa Hudgens and Allie from Allie and AJ were the two main stars.
Okay.
So 6 or 8 weeks we were in the studio. Then we were on location filming. So like all the stuff, they were filming in Austin. All the stuff was in like one of the high schools was closed for something. So they made it this like New Jersey high school and all this sort of stuff. So anyway, that's when I like saw like all these guys slamming the deal, and I was just like, okay, so that must be how.
So
you
they
do
slam it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they were
I didn't
slamming
even
on
know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was an actually technical way to do it.
At least on the movie that I worked on, yes, they were slamming it.
Okay. Okay. So that actually, because I'm always curious about what a stupid thing to like even focus on. But some people let it drop. Right?
Yeah.
Some people slam it. Some people keep their hand on it and just close it gently. But I guess technically you're doing it for audio, so you want to hear it.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say, you want to
noise.
hear it slap like that.
I was taking it more like personality, philosophically. Like, I wonder, are they a slammer? Are they? You know?
I'm a slammer. I'm just like, boom, let's do this.
Hey, did you like metal growing up? Were you a metal guy?
Not really. I was more of a like Jimi Hendrix, Pink Floyd.
Oh.
So my dad was listening to, I mean, it was Hank Williams Sr., Buddy Holly, all that stuff. Then he got remarried when I was 8. Stepmom came in. My stepsister was 4 years older, Allison. We're really close still. She turned me on to all these records. So 8 years old, it was Dark Side of the Moon. It was Are You Experienced and stuff. So that was my entrance. Then later down the line, she was dating somebody that was way into Metallica. And it was right around Master of Puppets. So it was just like, that's when I finally got into metal. Was that side. But it was originally like Jimi Hendrix just blew my mind. And then the perfection of Pink Floyd was just.
So, but like hyper melodic stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Especially because I was, obviously Metallica Black Album was the Black Album. But I was attracted to bass because of that. I'm a bass player. And Cliff Burton's bass, you know, on all those early Metallica records were like my whole like, oh, what is this world? And
you're saying that got you into bass, or it opened up your mind?
It opened my mind up on bass because my dad.
You were already playing bass.
I was already playing bass. Dad taught me, like it was so funny. I wanted to teach me guitar and I hated it. Like couldn't make the chords, all that sort of stuff. And then he was just like, got me a drum kit. I hated it. But I liked playing around on the piano. Like that was cool. And then he handed me the bass one day and was just like, I want to teach you Tulsa Time. It's 2 chords. It's a root 5th bass called root 5th bass. And what he had taught me,
country,
which I didn't know, was he taught me the Nashville number system. He taught me what a major scale was, what root 5th meant. And then when I learned that song, then he would teach me other songs by telling me a number. So he'd be like, we're in the key of G,
go to the 5,
G, go to the 5, go to the 4, and stuff.
But did you figure out where the 5 and the 4 were based off of
the major scale?
Well, okay.
So it was
like theoretically the major scale, or the way the major scale feels in your hand?
The way the major scale feels in my hand. So it was just like, I
feel like that's different.
In the key of G,
yeah,
it was going to be, this was the major scale. So if he said a 6, okay, I was going to play up here.
Yeah.
You know, and so, or play the low E, but I understood all that. And I don't know why I did. I just did. It made sense to me. And so I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I was hearing all this crazy bass stuff. And I was just like, what is this? Fell in love with it, but then got away from bass and stopped playing bass until, so all of this was in Pennsylvania. My dad lives outside of Philadelphia on the Delaware River, a little town called Upper Black Eddy. Mm-hmm. And then my mom, they were divorced when I was younger. My mom moved to Groom, Texas, up by Amarillo. And I was freshman year of high school. I decided I'm going to try living in Texas. This sounds fun, cool. I was visiting. Awesome. Fast forward to my senior year. some new kids move in, have a band, need a bass player. Okay. And I was like, well, when I was in junior high and stuff, I was playing bass. Like, I would love a chance. Grabbed a bass. They played me, like, gave me a cassette with all their covers, and it was all what is big 90s country now. Back then, it was brand new country. So it's all Brooks and Dunn, Little Texas, all that sort of stuff. And so by ear, I was just learning these songs. And by then, the country bass lines were pretty intense and melodic. Like, there was a lot of cool, just stuff they were doing. And I was remembering, like,
that's an interesting country bass lines that were melodic.
Yeah.
Nowadays that doesn't
happen anymore. No. But there'd be like, God Bless Texas. Uh-huh. That song has some really cool licks and lines
happening. Yeah.
And I was just like, this is fantastic. I was like, I didn't know that country could do this, and I was like, because I just remembered, okay, I was learning Jimi Hendrix stuff and everything when I was younger, getting out away from dad. You always got to break away from dad. And then from there, when I went to college at South Plains College in Levelland, I found the blues and went down the Stevie Ray Vaughan and B.B. King and all the kings, Albert King and everything, and then went from a country shuffle to a blues shuffle. And it was just slightly different, but I understood that. And then I played in more blues bands when I was in college. And me and Randy Rogers' band drummer, Les Lawless, he was my drummer in college. And we still do stuff together in the studio and everything. It's funny, damn near 30 years later, we're still playing together. But we were doing we were playing in blues bands, and we were also in ensembles that were doing pop music and contemporary stuff and contemporary Christian. We were in every ensemble we could be in. And so we were playing all these different styles, but for some reason in college, the blues was like it. Like had to learn every Stevie Ray Vaughan thing and everything. I just wanted to know, because the feel of it was like something I never experienced before. Like, I knew what the blues was, but not what that was.
What do you think is the main difference between a country shuffle and a blues shuffle?
I think
technically, and then how it makes you feel.
I think I can't even say technically what it is. I just know on the feeling side, the blues shuffle just has to be steady and has to just move you so everybody around can play. Like, I feel like the bass and the drums are just the foundation of the house. And I always treat every record I make that way too. But it's like, as long as they're steady, everybody can play around. And if you have to shift a little faster, a little slower, whatever, you can do that. Whereas country, that shuffle needs to make you just want to dance. They need to be out on the floor and they need to be moving. You want bodies moving in blues, but a different way. In country, you want people out on the floor, especially back then. And you just want them two-stepping, swinging. You need to know what it is. Oh, we got to slow it down, It needs to be a slower shuffle or a waltz or something. You want them to get a little closer and, and ultimately buy more drinks for the ladies, and
so are you saying a country shuffle should be able to sway more tempo-wise?
I think so.
Than a blues
for
shuffle?
Sure. I think a blues shuffle needs to kind of just have this steady
ZZ Top
pulse. Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect example.
Okay.
And even Stevie, like I've in fact here lately, I've been on a rabbit hole of listening to Stevie live stuff.
But like, I don't need my drummer and my bass player.
No, but I feel like a country drummer and bass player needs to see what's going on out there.
Okay.
And sometimes things need to kind of slow down, or sometimes things need to speed up, especially back in like the Roadhouse gigs and stuff like that, the 4-hour, dance slots and everything. You need to be paying attention to what's going on. And
I personally don't think the country bands nowadays are taking that approach at all.
Not at all.
I think it's so straight. I mean, and most guys are all on click.
Well, that's it. You're on a click and you're on like most of the time it's Ableton or something where it's just like background stuff going on and everything, and even lights and stuff, and even
if you get off at all
clubs. Yeah.
I mean, even the talking points are scripted.
Yeah, and timed, and like
it's like, hey, you need to wrap it up.
Yeah,
because we got to move on to the bridge.
It's crazy. It's so crazy to me that is it. And most of them have no idea what it's like to have an audience. And like, I feel like DJs know how to read an audience better than bands do. My brother-in-law is the Oklahoma City Thunder DJ. He's DJ Lightbright. And we talk about it all the time because he's like, man, because he'll do weddings and stuff like that or events for the Oklahoma City Thunder and stuff. And he's like, I'll just, when the crowd's moving and stuff, you understand if you need to keep the tempo up or bring it down. You have certain set tempos you want and you think the show is going to go, or maybe even the buyer asked you to play certain songs. But when you see them moving and how they're moving, you just got to adjust your playlist right away, and how you blend stuff together. And he'll do stuff where he's the DJ and it's drums and a sax and sometimes a singer and stuff like that, and
I've definitely noticed maybe the artists that haven't done the brutal 4 or 5 hour gigs, happy hour, or just like tourist bars and where people are just there to party. If you haven't like really done a lot of that,
yeah,
I've noticed a lot of those types of artists struggle with just being able to read a room,
yeah,
and being able to connect, or they can walk off stage and just be like, man, we crushed. And I'm like, you lost them about 3 songs in.
Well, and
it's interesting that they're a little detached from it.
And they'll stay on their set list, where sometimes you need to be able to audible.
No doubt.
I totally get you have a show, like maybe you're 4 set lists that you're constantly rotating, but man, you sometimes need to
especially with players interchanging, like having some level of consistency, because it's just it gets so tough to change players out and stuff, and have like decent transitions. But even those transitions being developed, like I'm just now getting to the point where like I have a board tape that I'm proud of that is like at least some sort of snapshot of like, if we have a decent show, this is the way I want it to roll.
Yes.
But even within that, I send a set list to like a new guy, but I'm like, listen, bro, that thing's going to change.
Yeah.
But we have plays, if you will, that like you can, or blocks that you could put together.
These
or
3 or 4 songs are going to go together.
Sure. But that's by way of going and doing it and then just realizing, man, those work well together.
Yeah.
And you've tried it so many different ways. And then gotten crushed by an audience and just been like, we just completely lost them. Like, I need to rework this.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm like always doing that.
Well,
and their perception of you changes over time as well.
Yes.
So I've always thought it was a little odd to keep this just regimented.
Yeah. But they're married to that computer and it's crazy. Like in the studio, I like a click track. Not every time, but for the most part, I'll always go towards the click, just because I like a good feel and there's just something about it. But years ago, I did a couple records with Asleep at the Wheel, but the first Willie and the Wheel record we did, that one, I remember walking in, and their drummer, I had done stuff with before that he was great on a click. But when it came for that swing stuff, he was just like, I said, what click sound do you want or something like that, and I was talking to I was engineering it. And I was like, what click sound do you want? And he's like, you know what, for this session, I'm the fucking click. And I was like, got it. Sweet. That's all we need.
How did that work?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
Because even in that, with Ray singing and Willie singing and Jason Roberts was still in the band. So Jason singing and everything, like he knew how to sway to their vocals, and how to push and pull. And I'm trying to remember who was, I think Kevin Smith was playing upright. But they knew each other well, and it was just like they knew how to just flow and go and just, and it's like, okay, yeah.
That's really interesting to talk about, like a rhythm section being able to sway with the rhythm of the singer.
That's, yeah.
Or like understanding if a singer wants to sing like behind the beat a little bit, you probably shouldn't be playing behind the beat.
No, yeah, you don't want to follow the singer then.
Exactly.
It's just like you need to stay steady.
Yep.
Willie's the perfect example. You have to stay steady because he's going to land.
100%.
But
you got to trust he's going to.
Yep. Yeah. And that's it. And it's funny too, because I've seen I've done a lot of stuff with Reckless Kelly over the years, made records with them. I've played bass with them for months at a time while they were in between bass players. And Jay is the only one with a click in his headphones because he likes to start the tempos the same. And he's like, I'll shut it off. Like he's got his in-ears. He's like, I'll shut it off when I feel like we're straying too much. But he goes, I know where I want to be for every song. And I will keep Willie and Cody in line where they need to be and then let them go off where they need to be. And I was like, oh, okay. And when I was playing bass originally with him for the first time, I was like, man, maybe I want some click too. But then I was like, no, I'm just going to listen to Jay and just follow Jay and do what we do best, because we already knew that we could be a good rhythm section anyway. And that was the funny thing. One of their bass players had left on a Monday, and then they had 25 shows in 28 days starting Wednesday. And their first show was a live radio show.
25 shows in 28 days. How does somebody sing that much?
We went up. That's Willie. He's got it. He understands.
Holy
Again,
cow.
think of the Braun brothers like that. Willie Braun, Cody Braun, Micky, Gary, they grew up playing. That's all they really know. So they understand night after night, having to keep your voice that way.
I mean, that's like, you can't, I don't know, dude. For me, you can't drink, you can't smoke, you can't talk after the show. To do that, I don't know. That's the way I would have to be.
And they definitely weren't that way.
I know, that's what's great. I know they're probably not.
But they're just, they know how to do it. But what's funny is that Willie had sent me a set list, and he was like, this is the main set list we're going to do. And I knew some of them just because I'd made those records. And then he goes, but if you can, like, chart out everything you can. And by show 3, we were just going way off the set list. You know, we were keeping 3 main songs, and then the rest were just whatever he was feeling. And most of the time he would give me enough time if for some reason in my crazy binder of charts, if I didn't have that song, I'd be like, well, send it to me. And sometimes it was a phone demo or something like that. And then I'd chart it out real quick. And
it's interesting, wanting to feel the room on the fly and make changes. That's very cool. And then there's another part of me, though, that can appreciate, like go into the venue, like, and then even wait to write the set list maybe an hour before the show.
Yeah.
Like, look at the crowd, at least try to make some sort of judgment call, and then commit to, this is what we're going to do. At least for me, because then there's an element of like confidence almost.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if in the middle of the set, I feel like I'm losing them, sure, there's some things you could do to, you know, maybe
bring it back.
Yeah, sure. And that great, because you're just trying to connect is the thing. But there's also like, I probably fell into that too much early on, to where I was a little too focused on maybe connecting or giving somebody what they want, rather than having the confidence to be like, this is what I'm going to do. And you guys can come along for the ride or not, but I'm going to be doing it. So it's like a balance between the two. Because you can go, I've observed guys go too far in the confidence direction, where it's like they have a complete disregard for the audience, which I'm like, what's the point of this?
Well, I mean, Andre 3000 made the flute record and then did shows.
That's not the direction I thought you were going to go, as the Andre 3000.
Well, and that's what's funny, because like people would show up thinking, well, he's still going to play his other stuff. And he was like, no, I'm just going to play my flute jazz record. Like, that's it. And so there was that, you either were with him and you were going on that ride with him, or you were going to get mad that he wasn't playing, you know, some of the hits and stuff like that. My favorite on that tour. So I ended up, I think that run I did 6 or 7 months with them, because we knew the bass player that was coming
Andre
in.
3000.
Yeah. The Reckless Kelly stuff. And then I did like another 4 or 5 months before Joe came in, the current bass player. But so that first run was we were the first of 3 with Nashville Pussy and Reverend Horton Heat, going up the East Coast, playing like theaters and stuff like that. And one night we played the 930 Club in DC, and everybody in that front row hated Reckless Kelly. And in front of Dave Abeda, there was this guy whose girlfriend was getting into the band, but he had his back to the thing and was just like shaking his head. He was not enjoying the show. And so we changed the set list on the fly to cater to just piss that guy off. We're playing the songs we want to play, and everybody's playing a solo in front of him and going there
after him.
And
Good
finally,
what a weird energy too.
And it was just like, because you have that, like, you know what? We're badass and we're cocky. And you know what? If you don't like us, I don't give a shit. We're still going to play our asses off, and we're going to play our fun songs that we really enjoy playing. And But what was great was when we got to the second to last song or into the last song, Willie's like, and we got this is our last song. And I think we did Castanets as the last song. But as soon as he said that, he just turned around and goes, yes. And we're like,
What a
fuck you, dude.
dude. Like, what a douchey.
Why do that at a show?
So weird.
Like, man.
And you're in a small club type thing. And
Yeah, it's not like an arena.
it's like underground type music.
Yeah.
And you would think that person is down for like music discovery,
Yeah.
right? And probably pretty open-minded.
And nope.
Like they're not at the front row at a that's the great irony is like at the front row of a Morgan Wallen concert, they're like almost more open to the opener than like in this underground club or something.
That's you know what? That's weird too, but it's
Right?
so true. Yeah.
And that doesn't make sense to me.
It's so
Because then once you win him over, like that guy, if he became a fan, he would be like a fanatic.
yeah, he'd be a fan for life. And that's what I always like as going into the changes of the music industry with streaming and all that sort of stuff. I came from selling CDs in the back of our cars, and we would sell millions of records. And to streaming now and watching every social media thing come up and everything go away and stuff like that. And as everybody tries to figure out what their lane is and everything. And, like with my wife, Darby, I tell her.
Darby Sparkman.
Darby Sparkman,
Yeah,
yes.
I met her for the first time at, well, no, I don't think it was the first time. But like actually got to chat with her a little bit up at Hotel Turkey.
Oh yeah, Hotel Turkey.
It was like 6 months ago or something like that.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
That's our we love that place.
Yeah.
That's heaven. And that's why
So
we
anyways,
do the boot shop
I
stuff. So I'm always just telling Darby, I'm like, it's still just creating fans and creating a fan that loves you and then follows you for the rest of it. So we see people with, all of a sudden they had, that one clip has 50,000 views on it in a week and stuff like that. And then it might go away and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, the key is to build the fan base one fan at a time. It was that way in the 90s and it's still that way today. I think a viral hit can be a little scary because is there going to be a follow-up? Or when I watch labels put it all behind one single. And I'm like, yeah, but what about the next single and the next single? And I always have the thought process of like the Elton John way of when he made Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, he then went out and did the Hollywood Bowl show with all the different pianos, the different colors and stuff. They played the whole entire record of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road because they had just recorded it. He still had 3 records to come out before Goodbye Yellow Brick Road even came out. So it was almost 2 years before that album hit. So people heard these songs that they couldn't even get. But it's like you just need to keep making art. And if something pops off as a hit, fantastic. But you can't think of, I'm making this piece of music because it needs to be a hit or I'm done. If you're in that mindset, then you're always going to be chasing rather than just being the artist that you're meant to be, being the songwriter you're meant to be, being the band you're meant to be. Chasing never does well. I remember when Lloyd called about when we made what became the Home record for the Chicks. Like we were going into Cedar Creek and he's like, hey, we're just going to make this like bluegrass record. And it might be demos, it might be a full album. Gary Pachosa's coming in, you and Gary can engineer it and together. And it was a blast. But the label, they were already in the process of one of the lawsuits with the label. But the label was like,
which record was Home? Sorry to interrupt.
It's the one that has like Traveling Soldier on it and, Landslide and all that sort of stuff.
Crazy.
So, and it's nuts to think about. Like the label was like, Sony was like, oh, this is nice, but here's demos of songs we want you to cut, that are actual country songs. They've had no use for a bluegrass record. And they had no idea Home was going to become what Home became. Like nobody did. There was a little bit, Alison Krauss was doing well and stuff like that. And Oh Brother Where Art Thou was new and that was doing well, but no one thought that would happen. Something like Home, it just explode, and they were already an arena band, but then I mean, go nuts. It was crazy. I think that record in CD world sold, I think it was 8 million in the States, 30 something million worldwide.
And what's a gold?
Gold is 500,000.
Yeah, yeah. So it's
So yeah, we got our platinums and all that sort of stuff. And then
so platinum's a million.
platinum's
Yeah,
a million,
okay,
yeah.
yeah.
And then diamond is
It shows
10
you how
million.
much I'm chasing the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because now that's all different. So now it's like so many
Well,
streams
the
equal a
units
buy.
just changed, but yeah, they still
Yeah.
try to.
Because it's like, is 10 streams a buy in Billboard now? It's crazy because then I turn around and go to, I think of Billboard and stuff like that in the charts. And then I'm listening to, there's a new book out called The Colonel and the King. And it's based off of Colonel Tom Parker's letters and everybody he worked with. And so it's like almost like a business biography.
Was he Elvis's guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was Elvis's manager the whole time. And that Elvis movie that came out like 2 or 3 years ago demonized him a lot with Tom Hanks playing him. But it's crazy when you go down that world of like, well, what he did, he had run that as a kid, was in the carnival circuit and understood how to promote. And that's basically, and had made Eddie Arnold huge. And then Elvis comes along and then was just like, okay, this kid, we got something here. But it's funny to see in that book, they talk about like they would come up with charts just to have a talking point in the press, in the publicity. So it was just like Billboard would make up a chart just so they could put Elvis on it and talk about Elvis being, I mean, it was like, oh yeah. I mean, that's how it's always been, but it's so funny to think because people chase the charts and there is something to say for the charts. It's obviously like, especially back then, it was people purchasing records. So it was like, no matter what, those people were buying, but it's a lot harder now because it's streams and then it's bought streams. And I can look on the back end of certain things and I can tell when certain things I've worked on may have been purchased streams because then those streams would go down and then things would come back up. And I'm just like,
But
okay.
yeah, it's marketing and it's changing people's perception of what they think they like
Yeah.
by way of what they think other people like.
Yeah.
You know, it's not super common. Most people in life, and this isn't even like we succumb to it in one way or another, but most people go through life and never really make a lot of decisions about what they do, what they wear, car they drive, how they decorate their house, the music they listen to. Most people don't make those decisions based off of what they truly like.
Yes.
They're making it based off of what other people like and then how to fit in. But we are like herd animals to a degree. So why am I wearing what I'm wearing and you're wearing boots and we're wearing jeans?
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like we're not all like as hipster as we like to think we are.
No. And it's like, and what's really funny is now that, our daughter Greenie has just turned 1 and stuff, like I straight up went to Sam's Club and bought a bunch of shirts because they're comfortable, they're lightweight. And I'm like, man, why was I going nuts, like buying all this other clothes and dressing up or buying vintage clothes and having shit altered and stuff like this when I'm like, this $12 button-up shirt is nice and it's comfortable.
Yeah, it's almost it just is a pointless endeavor or I guess would be exhausting to try to do everything different for the sake of being different.
Yeah.
Because even that can be disingenuous where if you just don't like something because everybody else likes it,
well, yeah,
you're also not being true to what you like.
And that's become, I think in social media world, that's become like the big thing is that somebody always wants to hate what everybody else likes.
Exactly.
And then have a platform to say, this is why I hate it. This is why this
Yeah.
person isn't genuine. This is why.
Just because something's popular doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But
popular.
also just because something's popular doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah.
Like, you got to judge it with every
You just have to decide
individual.
whether you like it or not.
100%, dude.
It goes back to that is having your own opinion, and especially with music and not like having, this is one thing that has gone away. And it used to be, especially, and I know when I was growing up, like you had DJs you listened to and you trusted them to play music that you may never have heard before, but that would be like, hey, if you like me as a DJ in my station, that you might like this. Before it was all under one, iHeartRadio and stuff like that. It was just like there were those DJs that did cool shit like that. And that is harder to find now because everything's out there online. You don't have the person you trust to go to.
No, the tastemaker is an algorithm.
Yeah.
It's not a human anymore.
And it's based off your algorithm personally.
Oh yeah.
That's the biggest thing too. And then who runs that algorithm and what happens there? I mean, it's so insane.
A little depressing. I didn't take it quite serious enough. I think when streaming was exploding, that's like right when I was putting out my first music.
Yeah.
And there was that tension between radio and streaming, and like you were either on one side or the other. This is like 2017 or something, 2018, where, you're like, either you're going to promote it on radio and screw streaming, or you're not going to do anything on radio. And I was like kind of in the middle of that, where I'm like, well, this is the future, but I also didn't maybe appreciate some of the tastemakers and just the human element of somebody pitching a song to somebody else. I didn't appreciate that enough. And what made me realize that was now that human songwriting is under attack through technology. Now I'm like, oh yeah, radio DJs, my bad. I do appreciate just a human.
Well, and it's funny, because it's like I've got Craig and Amarillo and Matson and New Braunfels and KHYI and and the ranch and stuff, and those guys that hardcore. My buddy Adam up north, I'm trying to remember even where his city is, but I always send them stuff that I'm working on because I'm like, I know it's some of it gets radio promoted, some of it doesn't, but I'm like, I think you guys would dig this. If you want to play it, awesome. That would be great, but there are still some of those guys, but I mean, most of it when we put out when Silverado was still the Moonpies and we put out One to Grow On, we played some of the Nashville radio game. That was tough. And it was just weird to see it on the back end of how, like I knew what the Texas radio was, but then the Nashville game and who controls what stations and all that sort of stuff. And I was just like, wow, no wonder there's a lot of money being spent for this,
Yeah. So there's two sides to it where I loved, in a way, I loved the purity of an algorithm truly just mirroring what you want and just giving you what you want rather than having the influence of a human. Because there was a part of me that it got frustrated with maybe radio or tastemakers, if you will. Because even a lot of them they like to think that they have like really eclectic taste, but like whatever's going right now and whatever's pretty popular, they like the thing that sounds like it.
They still want that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've never had that. And it's been honestly, everybody says like, just be true to yourself, be something unique and original. And in terms of like actually having like, I guess, success or quick attention, that ain't the move.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough familiarity. And so I struggled with like tastemakers. So there was a part of me that was like, screw y'all. Like, yeah, I know my stuff sounds different. It doesn't like fit into your little box. So, but guess what? Now over here on streaming, like I'm doing pretty well and I'm building some fans, and it's like, will you guys play it now? So, and I had a couple that like Hollinger in Fort Worth was always like a big supporter. And then Craig up there in Amarillo.
Yeah.
There was some others that are like, I just don't get it. I don't know what he's doing, really like that. And so there was a part of me that kind of had a vendetta against that, where I was like, I'm going to get it out to people. And that regardless of y'all.
Well, and what's funny is, especially with streaming, like, so Darby and I went 2 or 3 weeks ago to Oklahoma City and saw Lake Street Dive. They had a band called The Dip open. Dip's from Seattle. They were out with the Red Clay Strays for a bit. And then out here, they don't have radio. They are, I don't know, 8-piece band with a horn section and stuff like that. I mean, it's this cool, groovy soul thing. And then I go and I'm like, man, I've never heard of these. I'm in love. Like, this band is fantastic. And then I go to their Spotify, 3.1 million monthly listeners. And I was like, oh, so I'm just out of the loop. they're not on every station. They're not in my algorithm. Now they are, but they have the fan base.
And that's
I
becoming
get it.
more and more common.
Yeah.
You're like building huge followings.
Yeah.
Huge.
And I think,
And then weirdly enough, though, some of them struggle touring.
yeah.
Dude, like Lord Huron.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like 20, 30 million monthly listeners or something on Spotify. And like a lot of people listen to the music, but even touring, I think, I mean, struggle, I think, but in relation to other artists that have that many monthly listeners, like, I mean, they're not like
But
in an arena.
And then you get bands with
A
15,000 or I mean, I know bands with 15,000 monthly listeners on Spotify that can sell out 2 to 4,000 seat theaters every night.
Bizarre. Isn't it?
And it's crazy. And part of that is they're older bands that the fan base just isn't on streaming. But they'll buy. There's some record labels that in the past 2 years have sold more CDs than they have vinyl. And they're like, okay, I guess it's time to bring back CDs. And it's one of those because they know their fan base for certain bands. So the older bands, those fans still want CDs and they're buying the CDs and they're so cheap to produce that they're like, okay, we'll make them and we'll sell more CDs than we did vinyl and not have to wait and not have to do all that sort of stuff. And there's portable CD players out now.
Dude, honestly, I like it because it is truly exposing that there's no one blueprint for anybody. And it just distills it all down to like make dope music.
That's it.
And then go play shows.
That's it.
Like, and I love that. I love that.
And I look at like Darby's last record, Darling of the Dust. She wrote these songs that all tell a story. Each song is a character. They all go from one to the other. Different grooves, different tempos, different keys. So we made this record that's upright, acoustic, a little bit
You're
of
saying
dobro.
the songs could like, if
Oh,
you
yeah,
played it
it
straight
goes-
through,
It's one long 19-minute song.
whoa.
And so we put it out. So what we did, and I got this idea from an artist named Ray, Raye. She's from England, I think. And she, like when she was 15, she got signed to a major writing deal, wrote a bunch of pop hits for people. And then I randomly saw Ray was on Saturday Night Live one night. And so she's got this pop thing with a full orchestra behind her and everything. And so one of her newer songs is a piece that's like 9 minutes. So it's a 9-minute long piece. And then the next 3 tracks are 3 different songs. So we did that with Darby. We put out the long piece and then we split it up in between acts. Every song is a different act. And there was some people that were interested in it, but we were just like, you know what, we're just finally going to put it out because Darby was doing the Pacific Northwest earlier this year and stuff. And we just wanted it out. And she could play it acoustically by herself. And it's not like the way, it's very minimal space the record is. And so we did it. And then immediately got into this next record that we're finishing right now. And which is a whole different, other than the drummer, Kier Stroud, I flew in from Nashville. It's all Lubbock players with a little bit of hints like Zach played some steel and dobro on the record and stuff. But it's more of a 70s thing. Like it's country, but it's, it's still Darby's songwriting, but it's like I had fun with piano and all the bass is upright bass, but it's all grooving drums and stuff like that. But as we're doing that, and I'm like, okay, Darby, that record of Darby's Darling of the Dust is kind of on its, it's towards the end of its cycle. Then
What a great album title too.
2 weeks,
Darling
I
of the
forget who
Dust.
came up with that,
That's
but I
great.
was like, that is it. And so all her stuff, she's got a custom jacket that says that. Like that's her thing is she's the Darling of
I
the
love
Dust.
it. That's great.
But 2 weeks ago, I get a call and they're like, okay, we need all the back end information because 6 of the songs might be put in this TV show. And we're just like, oh, I didn't realize like it's still got its life, But then while all that's going on, there's a band called the Drop Tines. And that song, Calling All Cars, is their new single. Mike McClure and I wrote that song while we were making Cross Canadian Ragweed's garage record 20 years ago. And for some crazy reason, Brendan Anthony, who's now the vice president of Big Loud, Texas, hits me up and he's like, dude, your song's gonna be the next radio single for the Drop Tines. And I was like, how is it 20 years later, the song that was on Foam that we wrote while we were making a Ragweed record has like seen the light of day?
So who listened to that?
I don't know. I still don't know. I'm
'Cause
figuring Dylan.
Who's the lead singer for?
I can't remember. So Dylan's the
but
bass
Dylan's
player.
the bass player, Samson.
And so Dylan and I know each other from a long time
I wonder
ago.
if it was Dylan.
And so that's what, and McClure and I still think it's
Wow.
Dylan
Wow.
because we still text each other. We're like, how crazy is this?
Wow.
Like the last song on Foam, like I had to go through and make sure our publishing was all correct and stuff like that because it was so long ago. And here it is. It's out.
Dude, that's beautiful. Just
Yeah.
put in the work.
And just make the art.
Yeah.
And you never know when it's going to find an audience.
Yeah, but sitting around and waiting to, dude, it's like, it's so funny. Like even with social media, when TikTok first started happening and coming out, I got on it early. Because I was just like, it's just funny. Like some people were on there really doing goofy stuff. And just because some people are doing something with it, like doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah.
So it's like I got on there. I just viewed it no different than like Instagram or Facebook or something, because all of them fundamentally are flawed if you let them be.
Yes.
And but I just thought it was weird that people would be like, really, TikTok? And I'm like, does that mean that you're like planting your flag on Instagram? Because that to me is weirder.
That's weirder. Yes.
It's weird. I don't care about any of them. Like in the sense of I just get to connect with people through video or picture about the art I'm making. It was just a weird flag to plant. They're like, I mean, TikTok's goofy. I'm more of an Instagram guy. And I'm like, I think it's goofy that you just called yourself an Instagram guy.
Yeah. Like what do you like? I mean, really and truthfully, I loved MySpace. It was great. We had fun with it.
Yeah.
And it's funny, my nieces and nephews, you know, they're all in their like 19 to 24. And they have, when I was down over to Philadelphia about a month or so ago, there's an app now that they're all on that you put your Spotify to or your Apple Music, whatever you listen to. And if y'all are friends, you can see what each other's listening to.
Very cool.
You can heart it. You can comment to it. You can share it with each other. You can compare. And I was like, I've never heard of this. And in my contacts, there's not many people on it. But that generation is all into it. And
You
they
remember
love
what it's
it.
called?
I'll have to look at my
for
phone.
sure.
Dang it! It had a name too that I was just like I never would have thought this as some sort of social app.
Yeah, and like the social media stuff and how people discover you or connect with you doesn't change the fact that like I write the songs and produce them, and we mix
Yes.
them, and I go play show. Like I don't know, it's just weird to think that somehow changes that fundamental foundation. And so there's a lot of people that sit back and just, well, I just want the music to speak for itself. And it's a bit arrogant, in my opinion. I just didn't have that luxury,
Yeah,
right? That would be great, but I don't have that luxury and I don't have the time. And it seems so risky for me for as much effort and time and money as I put into my art. It seems so unwise and just ridiculous to not make every effort to get it out to people.
well, that's it too. Alan, who manages Tucker Nizel, who I produced, and they're shopping the record right now, and all this sort of stuff from West Virginia. Alan was just like, no matter what, you have to be on social media if you are an artist this day. And going back to Elvis, he's like, Elvis would have been on social media.
Yeah.
Like that's
Oh,
just
gosh.
how it is. You know, that's how the music industry is. You have to figure out what your lane is in the social media and have some sort of consistency. Don't be a funny guy one week and then
Sure.
a serious guy unless you can meld all that stuff together and make it something. But it's just like, yeah, you just gotta, there is a game. Before that, you know, there used to be, I remember seeing Ragweed records on commercials. You know, that's how it was.
The only difference is they had to pay a lot of money for it.
Yeah.
And then there was a middleman.
Yeah.
So like how somebody can like think MTV was so cool. Like think about how few bands and artists actually got played on MTV.
Oh.
And if you got on it, it changed your life.
And how like and the bands from the 70s and early 80s were like fuck making a music video.
This is
It's not
stupid.
about looks. It's about what I'm playing.
Yep.
And stuff like that.
And
it's
so
like,
how is TikTok not just like a short form
It's-
version of a music video?
it's the same thing. Yeah. And that's my thing. It's like either be really DIY with it. Like if you really want to go DIY, look at the Beastie Boys. Every fucking music video they made was literally them with camcorders.
Yeah.
And they were on MTV all the fucking time and made awesome stuff because they were creative with the DIY. So either be really awesome DIY or get a really badass director and make some cool cinematic shit because you can do it a lot cheaper than what it was when they were doing it for MTV.
Way cheaper.
You know?
It is weird that we have so much opportunity to get art out to people so cheaply compared to historically.
Yeah.
So much opportunity. And then because there's so many people trying to do it, we're all like just bitching and moaning and complaining that we're all not household names.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you realize like 20, 30 years ago, like me, I was a horseshoer for a long time and like have no industry connections. It's like, there's a good chance, real good chance before the internet and stuff. Like I would have just ended up I would have just been like, man, it's just not in the cards for me.
Yeah.
Like, and then I would have probably still played and people would have been like, man, you really should have gone for it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I just didn't have any way to get it out, you know? And I just would have been a horseshoer my whole life.
And now it's there.
Now it's there.
So
And
easy
then
to do.
because you have the opportunity to get it out, you feel like you have some inherent like right to like have like huge success at it. It's like, dude, everyone's trying to do it. It's such an outlandish thing to be able to do.
And that's it. It goes back to creating a fan base. And I think like seeing the dip, finding what your market is. Unless they would have opening up for Lake Street Dive, I never would have heard of this band, but they obviously have a big enough fan base that they are making money touring and off of streaming. And
They're
it's
making
like,
a lot on streaming.
yeah. And it's
If
like,
they own it.
that's yeah. And it's like, and since they're doing that, I'm like, that's it. You just have to find where your fan base is. You might not be Taylor Swift big, but if you can make a living at it and get to do what you want and grow your fan base every show, that's all you need to do.
Mhm.
That's it. Don't try to be Queen. Don't try to be, and if it happens, awesome. But none of those bands wanted to be, maybe Taylor did, but Queen, Elton John, Zeppelin, all those bands that we love were just doing it because they needed to do it. And they just happened to grow up and be the biggest.
Well, and they got a ton of funding put behind them. And
Well,
and
they
at
found
that,
somebody that loved them and believed in them, and then was just like, okay, you know what? We're going to go for this. You know?
and then there was just much less music being put out. I mean, and those record labels would bet on a horse,
Yeah.
And I mean, just think of, I would be curious. I don't think there's any way to find out, but like for every Elton John, there's almost I would think there is almost collateral, like the cost of creating an Elton John,
Yeah.
from like a business sense. In that is I don't even know how many bands and other artists that got signed to the same label or other labels and just recorded records and wrote a ton of music and they just never got the money put behind them. And so there's like there's a cost that just went into him, but I think there's a cost from like an art standpoint that all of that had to go away because they didn't want the competition.
Yeah. Well, there's
Right?
definitely that, or they just couldn't get that artist over.
Right. Oh yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's the other
totally.
thing where they put all the money. They do the same thing they do to Elton, but they just couldn't get the artist over. And I just listened to, I listen to a lot of autobiographies and biographies while I'm driving. And so Mike Campbell, his book just came out, and realizing how many years and how much time they put behind Petty to trust that Petty was going to become something. And it's funny because they signed Mudcrutch. They signed him to Shelter in Tulsa. Shelter's got an office in LA. Mudcrutch is, ends up being no more. Tom, they just want to keep Tom, but Tom is like, I need Mike. Like, he's my guy. We create together. So then they send him eventually back to Tulsa and just write and write and write for years. And are looking, they have studio musicians come in, but they're looking for the band. And then since they all grew up together, Benmont has another band. And so Benmont brings in Mike and Tom to see what's going on. And then Tom's like, that's my band. And then they immediately go in and then they make the first record. And then, you know, history is made. But even so, we think of that first Tom Petty record with the hits as that's it. Like, then he's big. It's like, no, they were still broke. It wasn't until Damn the Torpedoes that they got over the hump. You know, so for years they're touring, playing arenas, but they're still not making any money because they're paying off what had happened for all those years. But you needed that money person back there to help find out. Art has always had some sort of benefactor, you know, and that is it. And that's what we know what the Sistine Chapel is, because they paid Michelangelo to paint it.
It is weird,
you know,
because there is no ultimate like value other than this just abstract sense of human expression, and there's no way to like truly value it. So that's why you have to have somebody who is just crazy because to just put up a bunch of money with no hope of ever getting it back. Yeah,
because most money people want to see what the return on investment is. Well, okay, so what's going to happen? When will I start seeing money
Which
back?
Obviously there's a ton of wisdom and life skills that are, it's necessary.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, because there's been a lot of stuff that's been created for profit and it helped society.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of stuff that's been created for profit that doesn't help society. Society.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It is interesting because like art, you know what you have to have that just like we're going to do it no matter what.
Yeah. And it's
Sistine Chapel.
And it's funny, like this was, I guess, the first year, 2025 is the first year that like Broadway has lost a ton of money and the show people haven't been going to shows. And
that type of show.
But yeah, that type of show. And but they know they need that it ebbs and flows. And this is a down spot right now. And, you know, people don't have the money to spend maybe and stuff like that. But they need to make sure that they keep that alive.
Well, isn't it interesting too that like when you feel that pressure and that squeeze, it's the only thing that can like really get you to question, wait, am I like doing this at the best of my ability? And do I need to dig deeper?
Yeah.
And like a lot of times, you know, obviously when things get to a level of popularity, they can sometimes lose the soul that even like got them there.
Yeah.
Like within art. And then once it all kind of gets stripped away, it goes back underground, and then it gets that soul back. You know, whether it's like hip hop or it's freaking punk, blues, or punk. Yeah.
And it's funny to see that, like, when it goes back underground is when, as people are starting to find it, they really connect to it. You know, so it's just like, I mean, there was a period of time when, you know, we're back into that like 90s country is cool again, you know, sort of thing. And
you've been living in Texas where it's just been happening forever.
Yeah. But it's like, I see my family on the East Coast and my friends on the West Coast and stuff like that are just like, oh, this is awesome and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know, I'm so glad that it is. It's always been here, but okay. But it's almost like that style went underground in all those places.
And I didn't even know it was underground.
Yeah.
I'm like, everybody knows.
Yeah.
This is so like, played out.
Nope.
It's so crazy.
It is insane.
Dude, so I was in Florida like a year ago, probably. I think it was a year ago. And it was like right after Zach Top had like exploded. And I've got this cousin. He actually, and he's, I don't know, like probably close to 40 or something. He's older, you know, quite a bit older than me. So one of the first Stratocasters I ever saw was him when he was in high school, and I was like in elementary school or something. And I was like a red Stratocaster, and I remember him playing and stuff. And it was like the first one I ever saw. And he was an artist, like he draws and paints and everything. He went to art school, and like he's like really, really great. And then he ended up living in Philly. Okay. And then like he was like a super artsy guy, like lived in a industrial warehouse with a bunch of other artists and stuff.
Nice.
Like really eclectic, but just such an open-minded person and so kind, but like an artist. And and so and now he does like some like architectural design stuff and like really cool remodels and whatever. And so I was chatting with him like a year ago, but and he was from Pennsylvania and like lived in Philly for a long time. Now he lives in Florida, but like grew up so different than me, right? Like just in a totally different world. And that last time I was down there, I was talking to him, and I was just kind of enjoying somebody from a different perspective. And I asked him like, man, what kind of stuff are you jamming? I was so armed and ready for like, I had, like Krungbin and like all these like super niche bands that are like real hip and cool that I could like turn him on to, and I was thinking he was going to do the same for me. And I'm like, dude, so what are you listening to right now? Like, what do you got going on? And he's like, man, I'm just like really into this Zach Top thing. And I was like, no freaking way.
Dude.
Like that was the soundtrack of like growing up out here.
Yeah.
Any convenience store you go into, like George Strait's playing or Keith Whitley.
That style, yeah.
Yeah. And I just couldn't believe it. And we were on the opposite ends. And I'm like kind of, bored with those sounds to a certain degree. I love that music, but a little bored with it. It was just so funny.
Well, I remember and okay, so first off, it blew my mind that there is a generation of, and this is telling me that I'm old, but there's a generation that don't know Ryan Bingham pre-Yellowstone.
Oh, right.
And so
he's only big because he's on Yellowstone.
Yeah, and I'm just like, he got Oscar. He's got an Oscar and Grammys.
I know.
What are we talking about? But
saw him play to 1,000 people 10 years ago in Florida. Like,
well, it's in which we're talking
which
about
for me is like, that's actually a big deal as like an indie artist.
Well, so I remember when Crazy Heart came out and all that was going on. Like, I still talk to some of my old friends from Pennsylvania, and a good friend of mine, Jeff Insko, moved to Pittsburgh, and he works at a museum in Pittsburgh and stuff like that, raising his family there. But I remember when he called me up and he was just like, dude, because we loved, like, he's the one that gave me my first Guns N' Roses cassette, when Appetite came out, before it was huge, where we were just doing all that. And we were way too young to be listening to Appetite for Destruction. But Jeff was like, man, have you heard this Ryan Bingham guy? This is incredible. And this movie and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, Ryan used to like crash on my couch, dude.
Wow.
Like we used to all just be around. I would, back before Elijah was playing bass with him and stuff like that, when, for the Dead Horses, it was like I would play bass and stuff. I was just like, dude, it's so crazy that you in Pittsburgh finally know some of these people that, that was going on. But that's how it is. It's like people that we know in our
that was I grew up on that first record.
Dude, it's
that Mescalito
so crazy. Oh, yeah.
So then do you know Corby Schaub?
Do I know Corby? Yes.
Okay.
So
I don't. That's why I'm asking.
So we had we had a little band together, and he would come in and play. So there was a whole thing where we put a band together to go to Italy and France to back Dub Miller and Matt Skinner. And while we were over there, Brian Bacon was playing fiddle. Brian fell out of a car and broke 4 bones in his hand. He ended up having to fly home from the tour and get it all worked on. And so the first night, he breaks his hand. The next night, that was, we were partaking in some stuff and fell out of the car and yada, yada. The next night, we're playing this festival, and there was a drum riser and a bass riser. And I forget what song we were going into, but I went to go sing a harmony part. I jumped off the bass riser because I was a very active bass player. And when I jumped, the wood broke. And it was an outdoor festival, and I just went straight down. I took my bass off, was coming down, dislocated my finger, broke 7 ribs. And so
7?
Yeah, 4 and 3, snapped 4, cracked 3.
I bet you thought you dropped a lung.
Oh, yeah, I was in the hospital for a while in Italy, and then stayed there for 2 more weeks before I could fly back because the pressure changed. Like I had to be able to breathe so much. Did not finish the tour, obviously.
Oh, pussy.
They finished it at acoustic. I know, yeah. Can't get out there. But we made a little EP called 11 Bones because we broke 11 bones in 24 hours. And Corby was one of the band members that we brought in on that and played some shows and stuff like that. And just because we had a long history together and just, yeah, he's one
So
of my
you know
favorite
Corby
people.
well.
Yeah,
He's sort of a mysterious individual.
he is. He's gone through a lot
Okay.
and has had to battle some carpal tunnel stuff and everything.
Oh.
But his phrasing on anything he plays is amazing, especially mandolin. Like what he comes up with and how he skates around. We made a live EP in our living room one time, and we brought like 30 people into our house, and it was Brady Black on fiddle, Corby on mandolin and guitar, Matt Skinner, John Silva playing cajon, and me on a hollow body bass. And we just told jokes.
Can we? Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. Can we do this,
dude?
I want it, dude.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it was great because we walked in.
Oh,
Matt just kind of played us the songs, and we're just like, we're just gonna wing it. And if it's good, it'll go on the record. And if it's not, whatever, And that's what we did. And it was such a blast. And we told jokes and all that sort of shit. And you could hear people murmuring and drinking wine and all that sort of shit. But yeah, Corby was the lead player. Him and Brady were just coming up with harmonies on the fly and shit like that. And it's,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then Corby did. I think growing up in the time period that I did, that Mescalito album, like if you were growing up in Texas and you were like into writing songs and stuff, it was just like, whoa.
There's video of us in Steamboat with Bingham playing the main stage, and Corby and Paw had done a rehearsal, like 2 rehearsals with me, because Elijah for some reason couldn't come in and play bass. And they're like, will you play bass? And Mark Ford was playing lead guitar too. And on the other side of the stage, but we worked up all the songs, the arrangements, blah, blah, blah. And then Ryan completely changed the set. And so we're having fun, but me and Corby's shouting stuff at me because he's just like, you don't know this song, but it's going to go like this and stuff like that. And it's great. I mean, it was such a blast. I mean, flying by the seat of our pants, but it was just like Corby had me and we were good, we're having, and I've got a great picture of just me and Corby just jamming. And it's like one of my favorite things.
I know. It's crazy that it took so long for me to meet you. Cause I've had so many people mention you to me and it's never happened.
I know. Well, and I knew you from the turkey circle just because Carly and Charlie and everybody, would just talk about you and everything like that,
wow.
And so it was just, there's that whole turkey world, and I'm so glad that it's growing and Carly and Charlie started the boot shop sessions, and that's turning into a thing bigger and bigger, and we're expanding. And immediately I was like, I'll just help whenever I can. And so now I master all those. And then if there's something kind of like super, I'll go out there and help engineer it and stuff like that. And that turned into me one day. Simon Flory has a new record that's about to come out, but I was like, man, over Christmas break 2 years ago, we're like, let's go in and cut a bluegrass record, string band record in the boot shop, no headphones. So I went, rehearsed with the band, tweaked their arrangements, let them get ready for 2 months. And then we just walked in for 3 days, and I set the mics up and tracked it, and just like nobody with headphones. So I was just making notes on my pad, which takes I liked. There might be a comp here or two of like the solo section from this take was cool, but the rest of the song was here. Simon was really good about working the room because I had room mics up. So like he'd back off the mic. So his vocals, like we worked up the harmonies so the harmonies are live, like all that sort of shit, So then I started doing more stuff at the boot shop,
And that's not a particularly easy room.
No.
I've been in there.
It's got a weird
Ross Cooper showed me that room
thing.
And then when I was out there, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And there was the Ross Cooper live record. Yep. I mastered that.
Okay.
And and they did a really good job at making sure the room was the room, but not certain frequencies like to go off.
Oh, yeah.
But talking about what we were talking about earlier, I can be a technical guy.
Do you want more coffee or anything?
Yeah, of course I would love some.
Keep going. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, I could be a technical guy, but I don't like to be. Like, I don't care about like what piece of gear or what. I just want things to sound cool. And like in the studio, I don't really care. I'm like, I trust the engineers now. I might go in and tweak a few things, but when I'm producing something, I'm in the main room with everybody. I like everybody in a room. Like I like amps blocked off so we can punch and stuff, but I try to get as much shit live as we can. And I like the feel of everybody working together. And so, but I trust what's going on and I trust what everybody has. But I'm going to be directing in the main room. I'm going to be with headphones and I'm just going to be, what if we do this? And because I get very excitable. I got tired of going from the control room, running in. Okay, guys, grab a guitar. What if we did something like this? And, and then build it off there, which is how Mike and I worked for so long. It's why Harmeyer and I got along so well because we could read each other's mind creatively and be like, man, I need a chord that allows the melody to do this or all this. And he'd look at me and he'd be like, well, what about this? And we'd build off of there. And even when we were writing, when we would write songs together, we'd write them kind of simply musically, but then we'd get in the studio and we'd try different versions, but then we'd try different chords and, make a song have 14 chords rather than 3.
So do you prefer not engineering it?
Correct. I'm not the guy that I used to be. It's like, I used to want to do everything. I'd engineer, produce, mix. Now I just like producing.
Do you think that was out of necessity though?
For a little bit, yeah. But then I realized I could get more work done. I could enjoy it more if I let the people that are my friends and I trust do what they do best.
But it takes time to find those people.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So at a time, it was just necessity because you didn't have
because it was like, so from 99 to 2007-ish, 6 or 7, I was the head engineer at Cedar Creek. Lloyd did most of his records there. And Lloyd turned me on to producing.
Lloyd Maines.
Yeah, Lloyd Maines. So it started off like, as a good engineer, you know how to keep your mouth shut. You're the technical guy. You let the producers and everybody and the musicians do what they do, but you chime in when need be. Something's out of tune. Maybe an amp tone is a little weird, drum thing. You have your producers back. That's basically it. You have the producers back. You also know when to tell the musician or to just tell the producer, hey, that's a little out of tune. Hey, this is a little weird. But then Lloyd started asking my opinion on things, and then he started passing me on things that he couldn't work on. So we built that relationship. Then McClure and I found each other. The first record was Garage. And then we started making all these records together. And then I was like, well, I could tell you, it was whenever we made Mission, California, I knew we were going to make that record in San Diego. And I gave my 6 months notice to Cedar Creek and say, I'm going independent. And I knew Ray Benson and everybody wanted me to work on some wheel records and everything. And so I was like, man, I've got enough people that want me to engineer and I want to produce more. So I kind of built it on that. And then I found Dave Percival at Yellow Dog back in 2009, I think. And then just moved my gear into there. And Dave and I just had a good workflow. We worked completely different, but we liked each other and we loved working together. We would play on each other's records and then just help each other out, and Yellow Dog was in South Austin at the time. And then we moved to Wimberley and yada, yada. But I was still that guy that just really liked like those first Departed records when it was Seth and Cody. I was engineering. I'd always have an assistant to help me out, but I was behind the console and coming up with parts and inspiring cool arrangements and ideas and stuff like that. But then at some point I was like, man, I know these, like all these other engineers are my friends. Like, what is it like? Why do I have this control thing that I have to do everything? And maybe it was just being older, over 40. And I was just like, fuck it. You know what? I'm going to have engineers that I want to mix. And if I want to mix something here and there, I will. But I have engineers, especially at the studios, let them do what they do best. this new Autumn Raglan record that's about to come out, we did at the church in Tulsa. I just advanced what I wanted, what the band setup was, and was just like, y'all do what you normally do. They have 2 engineers for you, one that runs the Pro Tools, one that does all the sounds and is behind the console. And I was like, I'm just going to be in the cutting room. I'll go in and listen, but you just tell me if something's weird or you say you got distortion on something. Like, I care about the players. I care about the song. We already did pre-pro, but I'm going to be hyper tweaking arrangements and stuff like that. I don't want to think about the control room. That record in and of itself, I probably spent 2 hours tops in the control room for a week because I didn't want to be in there. I want to be in headphones. As soon as we were doing overdubs with people, I was in eye to eye. Okay, look at the chart here, do this, blah, blah, blah. What if we do this? And, vocals the same way, it's just like,
It is amazing seeing how different people work. I've seen enough of it now, and then I've produced a lot of my own stuff too, and then I've started working with some other people. But like knowing where your lane is, I've seen some producers too that take like, I can't tell if they're purposely taking a hands-off approach or they're just lazy. That's a tough one as well to figure out.
Because I never understand the hands-off approach because I'm such a hands-on guy.
It's like they can pass it off as being like so open-minded. And I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, either you don't know what you're doing or you don't care.
But it's funny because there is like, I know Rick Rubin is hands-off, but I also know.
Yeah, but he's attentive, I think. I don't know.
Yes. And that's what I was going to say. I know, like with the chicks, especially, like they would tell me how when you thought he wasn't listening, like was he literally asleep in the back of the control room, he would say something that would just spark something. Or he'd be very adamant about, you know what? Your chorus isn't the greatest, but the bridge should be the chorus. So go rewrite that song. And to the point where you'd be kind of ticked, but they were like, he was always right. Like no matter what. But they were also used to somebody like Lloyd, or even in the Nashville records where they were coming up with parts and being active on that. So it was weird, but at the same time, they're like, he was always right. He knew exactly what should have been.
Yeah. It's interesting too with engineers where I've encountered some that are, I can't tell if they've been like super beat down by producers or something, where like, even if I ask, like, what do you think about this? And like, I've had ones go, I'm not the producer. And I'm like, yeah, I just asked you.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I don't know. I'm not here to make those decisions. And I'm like, come on.
Well, and it's so
because I like collaboration.
Yeah. Well, and I feel
or like where it's super divided, like just because you offer one idea, now they're like, not getting paid for that. And I'm like, okay, come on.
The collaboration thing is my whole deal. It's like this weekend I'm going to go down. There's a band in San Marcos called The Trips, and it's triplets. And Sammy is kind of they all sing, but Sammy's kind of the main songwriter of the band. And we're also we're doing 2 singles with The Trips, which is very indie rock, sort of just, cool arrangements. You can tell they grew up on 70s, but then he also has a bunch of songs that are more Americana style. So we're doing pre-pro on the band stuff, and then me and him are doing pre-pro on what will be the EP. And then later in October, we're doing both the band, and then I got a studio band coming in for his more Americana stuff. But it's all about collaboration. I was like, I want to do pre-pro with the band because I want to be in the room, so we're not wasting time in the studio learning the song. But I have tweaks that I want to do because I think certain bass lines could be cooler. And what if this instrumentation was here? And what if you're playing in this position rather than this? And all that sort of stuff. What if the drums did a slight change here? But it's all about everybody working together. That's how I've always been. And I was thinking, that's from Lloyd. Like Lloyd had his studio musicians, but also like when we were doing Pearl Snaps, like the stragglers coming in, and how to work with individual musicians in a band to make sure the band sounds like the band.
Yeah, I understand too that like there's probably been a lot of players, engineers, producers that don't get credit for a lot of the work that they put in. I understand that. I empathize with it. which, is something that needs to be addressed with like the more frontmen songwriter types. I feel like they get a lot of credit for stuff that they didn't do.
Yes.
And they're maybe lacking self-awareness to like for instance, there was a song. So I got a new record coming out in October, actually next week. And there's a song on there that is like a bluegrass arrangement.
Yes.
I have like a side project that nobody really knows about. It's not under my name or anything. It's like a folk pop project that I've actually put out this song on there, but it's a completely different arrangement, different song, same lyrics pretty much,
Yeah.
but different melody, like different song, right?
Nice. Yeah.
Because like I've gotten to the point now where I just like rewrite songs over and over, and like some are cool, but they're just stylistically different. So I'm trying to find different places to stick them. So, anyways, I rewrote it as like a bluegrass song, and the guys I was working with, there was, I don't know if you probably know Kevin Foster, banjo,
Yes.
really great banjo
Yeah.
player.
Yeah.
There's a kid named Adam Duran, who's played guitar with me for a long time, but he plays with Caitlin Bless now, but he's a real great like flat picker.
Yeah.
And then Wyatt, he's engineers with me and produces, and then he's a great drummer. So Kevin played, Haystack played upright bass, he played banjo on it, played fiddle on it. Adam played guitar and all that. But I just did a scratch track, and I think I got through, I went verse, chorus, and then I didn't have anything left. I mean, it's just, and it was like a bluegrass tune, and I can't flat pick like that. So I just had the song down, and I just said, I don't even know if there was like lyrical things I didn't have finished. And I just told Wyatt, like, finish it with the boys, like, y'all just turn this into a bluegrass song, right? And so they like arranged the whole thing. The whole back third of the song is like a huge bluegrass solo, and they did the whole thing and had fun with it. And then I just split the pub with them, you know, and it's interesting how how unfinished some stuff is when like songwriters and artists go into the studio, and like a lot of the players like kind of finish the song and rearrange a lot of stuff. Producer finishes it, and then they don't get any credit for it.
Yeah.
And the songwriter's like, well, I mean, I pretty much already had it done. It's like, dude, no. That ain't the way this works.
Well,
So I empathize with people.
That's why, like, I'm a BMI guy. That's why on the back end there is author and composer.
Yep.
Because it's just like sometimes the music has completely changed everything that
Yeah. So like I took the lyrical credit on it, and then I just gave them all like the other part of the pub,
I know.
And for me, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And they were like, dude, thank you. And I'm like, what? What is everybody out here doing?
And that's what's funny, because I know bands that, especially older bands, that would do multiple songwriters in the bands, and whoever brought the song in, they were the songwriter, but they always split the publishing between the band, because I know, like, in one instance where the one songwriter wrote the song, but the bridge was written actually by the other songwriter, but he was like, I don't want credit for it, but we split the publishing, and if something happens, and it became a big song, and it was just like, he's like, I'm fine with it, and it's like, yeah, it's when credit is due, and I always try to make sure to give everybody the credit they deserve, because I know songs that are out there on records that I'm like, wait, I've written like 4 of those lines, like, and I don't even have anything on the back end or credit on the record for it and stuff like that.
Yeah, because it's tough too. Like a lot of the guys I work with, I like there to be just an open line of ideas and collaboration, where it's like, if I'm, but everybody's just kind of got to be honest. Don't be looking for spots to find like, well, I did this. It's like, don't be looking for that. Because even if I'm doing scratch vocals and stuff, and I say like, is this line weird? And somebody just says, yeah, it might be better if like you said this word. And I'm like, oh, that does work way better. Dude, I'm not now like, we're not splitting the publishing.
Exactly.
And I want the feedback, but we have to be realistic.
And that's the side of a producer that I know, like, or if tenses are weird and stuff like that, or if I'm like, what are you trying to say here? Like, that's my job as a producer.
Editing is not creation.
To do that. Now, if I actually like write lines, then I want my songwriting. But I also know producers that no matter what, take a chunk of songwriting.
Oh, okay.
That's straight up like, there's most big producers. A lot of producers are weirded out that I don't take songwriting.
Interesting.
And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Me neither.
Like, but it is a thing now. It used to not be a thing when things were on CD because you were getting your points anyway. Now I know some bigger producers that I'm like, wait, no matter what, you take a chunk of songwriting? I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. It's like it's in my contract right here and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't even do unless we're going to a label, I don't do a producer's agreement until, it's like somebody's wanting to spend 100 grand to
Mhm.
buy the record. And then it's like, okay, let's do so I can get my little thing.
Yeah.
But even then I don't even do what the average percentage is because I think that's
It's
horseshit.
I know, but it's tough, like, to decide, because I could put out music on my own and not have to deal with any of it, and, like, if I'm gonna work with another artist, there's a part of me that's like, because I just know how deeply I'm gonna dive into it, and, like, at least something on the master, and I know there's gonna be a lot of stuff where, like, some arrangements are gonna change and some composition is gonna change because of me,
Yeah.
and there's some melody that's gonna change, and I don't know, I just like the idea of just putting it to bed and, like, being able to give myself wholly to it and just agreeing on this is what I get for it.
It's why, especially with independence, like I do a per song basis that I'm producing. We'll go to whatever studio you want to, whatever musicians, but me personally, because I am going to dive into this, I am going to be listening to the demos. I'm going to come up with ideas to do this. We're going to do this. And then I always just say, handshake deal. If you get a record deal and shit needs to change, let's talk about it, whatever, because most of the time, if a record deal comes along, the record company wants some sort of producer's agreement because they just want to cover their ass,
Sure.
and I'm like, then when that happens, here it is.
Mhm.
I'll take my small percentages. I'm not going to take these royalties and stuff like this, but I'll take this percentage. I'll take my points, whatever, that's it. But I've always been that way. I'm like, no matter what, I want something up front, but it's nothing crazy. And let's just go for it because I want to not think about it. I just want to make a record with you.
Yeah, it's
You know?
interesting if, have you worked with, because I'm in like a unique position where I'm writing songs with a lot of people, and then I'm also an artist,
Yeah.
but then I also have this producer thing. Uh, and so there's definitely some artists that have, like, I've got like a handful right now that are like want me to produce some stuff with them.
Yeah.
But I'm not technically very proficient, and but I've definitely gotten to a point where I can definitely bridge the gap between artists and engineers
Engineer. Yeah.
for sure. Um, but then there's that part of me too that like wants to work with other producers, right?
Yeah.
Like even if I am like co-producing or producing
Well, so
something,
co-produce something with somebody. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's like, because I mean, McClure and I had that thing early on. I was engineer, he was producer, but there was obviously that like, dude, let's make the guitar part like this, or let's bring
yeah,
this down sort of thing. And then I realized what I was doing. And now we did, there's a Dallas Burrow record that will come out at some point because he's got a bunch of records in the can that we did together. And I ended up playing bass on that record too, some of it. But I just went in right away and I was like, I'm not going to engineer. I'm going to co-produce with you, Mac. And he was like, yeah, sure. Let's do it. Cause we've always had that. And so we just fell into the rhythm that we were, and it was just like, we hadn't worked together in a long time. And it was just like, okay, this is what we love about each other. It's why we wrote songs and did all this stuff together. But it's like, it's the same collaboration. It's just like, okay. But we would collaborate separately with the artist with our ideas, so we knew how to come to the artist with if there was changes, if there was chordal changes and stuff like that. And so, but I think no matter what, usually when I produce something, I always try to say I co-produced with the artist or the band
sure.
because it's like everybody's coming up with ideas,
I know.
and that sort of thing. It's not like I'm telling everybody what to do. It's just like, no, it's just like, I don't want to make a record that way because hopefully you guys have way better ideas than I do. I just want to like, hey, what if we do this chord here? What if we chop this in half or extend this out and what if we change keys? Real quick, sing it in this key, in this key. Let me hear what your voice does. And
How do you feel people that have just started pursuing maybe an artist career and they're wanting to like go record, they just have no experience in the studio? How do you what do you think are some of like bullet points that they could focus on to make themselves be comfortable and be prepared?
I think one thing that I always try to get people to do is get used to headphones because I feel like that's where everybody gets scared the most. Like their mind's blown that they're going into a studio for the first time and all that sort of thing. But like just doing their voice demos with their earbuds in, getting used to hearing that back is such a big thing because when I first started doing shit, that wasn't like we didn't have that option. We didn't have like unless you bought a cassette recorder or something like that to record yourself with headphones, you didn't have that. So when you walked in the studio, you never heard yourself in headphones. So get used to getting over that fear, of like, wait, that's what I sound like. Get used to yourself. Cause that's, I think, the biggest hurdle.
What type of headphones
And
would somebody go buy?
man,
What's the most standard headphone in the studio?
well, now it's become Neumann has headphones out now that are fantastic and I
I know I've
love.
got those closed back.
Yeah, I've got the open back
Yeah,
ones.
but they're
'cause
like
of-
$700.
yes.
Yeah.
Um
And no studios. They're not throwing you that one in
no,
the freaking.
I mean it's still the Shure or the Sennheisers or the AKGs. I always lean towards the Sennheisers, but the Shures were easy because they were, I think, the first headphones that if something broke, you could easily fix it and repair so you could have extra parts around, rather than having to send the headphones off. I got a new set of Grados that fell off and busted in, and I had to email Grado and was just like, I don't want to buy a new pair. Like, what's the thing? They go, we fix all Grados for $70. And I said, okay, I will send them off. And because I don't want to pay $1,000 and it was stupid and I just let them drop. But
so
yeah,
so getting used to monitoring yourself through headphones.
yeah. And honestly, with the way bands are now, for in-ears too, getting used to that because I feel like there was a time recently where they were signing a bunch of TikTok people and then they would go out on the road having never heard themselves, having never played live. And most of those label people put them on in-ears and they had no idea what was going on.
Well, the
So,
label people don't either.
yeah, well,
Most,
that's it.
sorry.
Yeah,
Some.
But that's a whole thing too. So either way, whether or not studio or that, get used to yourself in some sort of listening device right in your ear so you can get used to hearing yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing. And then I think I think going into the studio, don't go in cold. Like everybody I work with, I try to have multiple conversations with, hang out. Like we have to develop a relationship to make sure we can make a record together. But then that way you're kind of like me walking into the studio, even if you've only toured the studio once and now you're going into Bird. Okay, Adam and I have sat around and bullshitted and we've worked on these arrangements. So I'm not like totally nervous about this. I'm not just because back in the day, a lot of people were coming into Cedar Creek having never walked into the studio. Some of those songs were never heard, never played before. It was charting out in front of the musicians. And I look back and I'm like, all those motherfuckers had to be scared to death.
Sterile, cold, like.
It's like crazy. And that we got cool records out of them, and stuff. And part of that is because the musicians were just hip and cool and were very like, they could just relax you so quickly. You felt like one of them. They understood, you know, and that's what I always thought was different about Texas than Nashville was because Nashville, it was like, we got 3 songs in the next 3 hours. Let's knock these out. Where in Texas, those studio musicians that Lloyd brought in and then who I ended up working with beyond Lloyd, like they understood how to relax somebody new and young and feel like they're a part of the group. And I was like, okay, yeah.
Mm. So what do you think? This is something I would have loved to have heard if you can answer it when I first started. Cause I scrapped, I think it was 2 full projects
Yeah.
before I ever put out my full album. And what would be some like red flags or things to look out for when you like initially go into a studio or you're going to work with somebody, record some of your initial stuff? What are some of the red flags of like, do not work with that person?
I think the biggest thing is somebody that doesn't want to, at least from a producer standpoint, somebody that doesn't want to put in the effort beforehand. because I think there's so much has to be just done in a comfortability standpoint that it needs to happen before walking through the doors of the studio. And then trusting the producer on whether the studio is worth going to or not. Like, because sometimes I've definitely gotten the call when my buddy's got a studio and we can cut there. So let's do it there. And then I will go over the stuff and like, yeah, I don't think so. Like, and it's nothing against them, but the way I want to record something, I want the band recorded. I want everybody to have headphones. I want everybody to do this. I don't want drums first, then bass, then do this sort of stuff. That's not the way I do things. I know some guys like to, but not me. So I think that's a big red flag that somebody's like, okay, we're going to book this day. And then that's when they start working on the record. Because I think you start working on the record the second you start talking,
Okay.
and I think, and not another red flag is rushing, like talking to people and being like, okay, hey, I want to record a record, producer, studio. And they're like, all right, well, man, let's get in there in 3 weeks. And it's just like, unless you're like ready, like let it build, let it happen. Like most of the stuff that I do, we're having conversations for months, and working on. So right now I can tell you, I've got over the next through the beginning of the summer, and I'll fill it in with other stuff too. But we've got a Travis Roberts record. We're cutting through New West. Budget got approved. We're going to do it in Arizona again. Well, he had done his first record in Arizona, and then we were talking about where we are going to do this new one, and he was just like, let's go back to PH in Arizona. And so I was like, yeah. I was like, I worked on some Roger Klein and the Peacemaker stuff together. I've worked at that studio in Arizona. I'm all about it. Let's have fun. So we'll probably do pre-pro in December with the band, let the band work, and then March or April cut the record. So it's that. Joey Friendo up in Tulsa, he's put a band together, and I've watched him build this band and work on all this stuff. He just tracked a live EP at the Merc or a live record. I don't know what it's going to be, but he tracked the whole set live, sent it to me. I got to hear what the band's doing and stuff. But we're going to make an EP at the church, film the whole thing, like make it a cool little Tulsa thing. But he's got now 2 songs on that new TV show, The Lowdown. Sterling Harjo and everybody came to one of his sets and just saw him. And it was just like, you know what? From your old stuff, we want these songs. And boom, got it done. And he's just like, okay, let's you and I now do something. Cause we've danced about making some sort of record together 2 years now, since I saw him do stuff with Darby, where in Turkey, I was just like, who is this songwriter? I fucking love him. And then we put him on some of Darby's dates before she had the baby when Darling in the Dust came out. And so we've just kept it up, and that sort of stuff. And then Jeremy Pinnell, his new record with Shooter is about to come out, but I've got a Dropbox full of demos. We're discussing, probably go to Kentucky and do pre-pro with him before the end of the year so we can do something kind of in the beginning of the year. It's that sort of stuff, the way I like to think. And then some other stuff might be Rob Linus. Rob had 3 songs and had open dates, and he's like, can we get in 2 weeks? I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so we got together, arranged the songs, just me and him, to a click. That way the band could learn them, because Rob's stuff is very riff oriented. So I could chart it, but it's rock riff. And we're going even bigger into the rock stuff now compared to the last record we made. But that stuff's last minute first. Let's do it.
I really enjoy his stuff, by
and
the
stuff.
way.
And it's, dude, wait till you hear this song that's going to be his next single. I probably got a mix of it on my phone, but the riff is 3 bars of 5/4, then a bar of 4/4. And I was like, we got to cut it in a way that you don't think about it.
Yeah.
It's just like that sort of thing. And then it changes time and then comes back and stuff like that. And I just like, it just has to kick you in the face. And we had a session bass player, Mike Terabay, come in, and Michael and I have our history and, our stuff we've done together. And I was like, dude, this isn't a chart. This is I'm going to have charts, but just, I can't chart out the riff. You're going to have to learn it. And he goes, okay, just send it to me. He goes, thank God you sent it to me. And I was like, yeah, because it's so fast and it's so crazy. But then, like, as soon as we started playing it, and Rob was like, you know it. And he's like, yeah, because you sent it to me. Adam sent it to me. So I learned it. And then we did some quick, it's all about the preparation like that.
So then that would consist of like, what songs are these like fully done and fleshed out, making any changes that need to be done, charting it out, like deciding on studio. So like gear and like what sonically you might be going for based off of like what's some other records that you really enjoy, and then sort of reverse engineering like, oh, well, they were using this console, these types of preamps, and like, so reverse engineering before you ever go into the studio.
Yeah.
So if a producer's not actively kind of maybe sharing some of that and pushing for that.
That's my thing. Like, okay, Autumn Ragland's record, we knew her band is drums, her playing acoustic, drums, bass, piano, and sometimes electric. And we wanted to build a record around that. The church, their drum miking setup is more like the Glenn Johns up and side drum style.
That's my jam.
And I've never done that before, but I was like, you
really
guys do that? Yeah. Because to me, I was always like, I want the close mic shit. Like, give me that.
Or I guess you can still have that as an option.
Yeah. And they did. That's now, to be fair, now that I know that, they did. But as we did that, I was like, okay, we're going to embrace that sound. Like, this is going to be the sound of that record. I'm worried about the piano and electric doing shit together, not necessarily that. And then I knew my buddy Kevin Szymanski mixed that Autumn record. And I remember him being like, dude, are the overheads weird? And I was like, Glenn John set up. He goes, thank you.
Do you know what kind of overhead mics they used? Did they go like,
I think they were doing Coles. Yeah. So I think it was
like
Coles
straight up Glenn Johns. Yeah.
And then it was 57s. It was like a D112 or something in the kick, 57s top and bottom, 421s on the toms, which are my go-tos anyway. But then no other overhead. It was just that. Because I was like, well, I normally have a close ride and hat that are dynamic. And that was a thing I learned from doing stuff when we made the side project of Marty and Emily from the Chicks, the Courtyard Hounds, was Jay Scott producing. So I was the engineer. Jay was Rick Rubin's engineer forever. Jay did a bunch of Wilco records. He did all the Red Hot Chili Pepper stuff, like everything. And when he came in, I had it set up the way I normally set up. And he goes, okay, the only thing I'm going to change is he goes, I've got 287s. I'm going to use those overheads instead of, I think I had 414s up. Because I'm going to do that. And he goes,
I'm still in a world where it's like, to even have the two 414s or the 287s for like overheads is still just
shipped. He shipped 2 Neve sidecars.
Oh, okay.
And he was just like,
hey, we're in a different world.
And so, yeah. And I was like, all right. We spent a couple months on that record. And we only spent a couple months on that record just because he was developing Emily as a lead singer because she'd been a harmony singer for so long, but her and Marty wrote all these really cool songs. And I still so fucking proud of that album. Like, I still reference it. The shit that Emily was writing and everything, I'm like, holy shit. Like, we made this cool little indie pop record, that was banjo based and stuff. And Marty and I wrote these intricate violin lines together and stuff like that because we could just sit there and she would come up with what she wanted to play. And I'd be like, okay, the harmony should do this and blah, blah, blah. And what if this counter melody's here and yada, yada, all that sort of shit. We just had that working relationship. And so it was a lot of fun to do. And so we spent time making that record just because we would cut vocal. The band cut easy, but we'd cut vocals and then let her sit with it for 2 or 3 weeks. Then she'd come back in and recut vocals and getting the emotion out of it and stuff like that. Because it's like...
That's a huge one right there.
Well, and I look at like my wife, Darby. Darby works it out in her mind. So by the time we get into a vocal cutting thing, or like with this record, Darby had all these demos. Some of them were songs we had written together. And I picked the songs that I wanted, the 10 songs I wanted on the record that I felt flowed together how I wanted them, especially with the sound of the record, and did the arrangements. And then we cut it where she's holding a baby that's crying and stuff like that. And everybody, I'd gone to Route One ACUF in Lubbock to make the record because that was where she made her first EP, and I wanted Lubbock musicians. I was like, man, let's just do something cool. Except for uh, I flew in a drummer. I didn't know Kenny Maines yet. As a drummer, I probably would have used Kenny, but at the same time, Keo Stroud is one of my favorite drummers of all time, and I really wanted Keo's work with songwriters is so great that I wanted Keo to come in. But the rest of it was all Lubbock musicians, and I wanted that whole like feel of like this is a West Texas thing. And but Darby had it in her mind, so we were cutting scratches, but then we cut I don't know like 4 tunes the first night. We only were like 6 hours, and that was drums, upright, piano, electric, acoustic. And so then before the band came in the next day, 2 takes, maybe 3, Darby would sing because she knew what she wanted. I knew what I wanted vocally out of it. But it's like she knows in her head the emotion she wants to do and how she wants to push and where to put runs in and where not to put runs in, because she's also thinking of how she wants to harmonize or if she wants somebody else to harmonize what they want to do, because that's the way she does, because she was out playing clubs when she was 11 years old.
I mean, I get it, but yeah, what a difficult thing to truly plan out. And then, I mean, there's even stuff now that I listen back where, yeah, I just held a note to an extent, because when I wrote the song, I didn't have some of the full arrangement in my head with some other instruments, and I held out a note where it covered up space that we probably could have done a cool band thing.
Yeah.
Because when I wrote it, you're just on an acoustic, which can tend to get you to do more vocally and melodically than might be necessary because you're trying to fill space.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. And then there's other bands like Emily, what we did with the Courtyard Hounds and stuff, where it's like never have cut with a band. So yeah, we work the vocal side of it. Like I'll sit there and work out the melodies and stuff like that. Now go practice this for a month.
Yep.
And then come back and get used to it. And then you'll probably even come up with even cooler shit. But you've never heard yourself with a band, So now get used to it before you actually have the final lead vocals.
I mean, dude, I've been in some pretty high level recording situations where, not me personally, I was there in different capacities. And I mean, it's like sort of get the track, like get the thing tracked. And then it's just like, all right, you ready to do the vocals? And they're just like, okay. And then it's like, just hop in there
and do it.
And then like the whole band's there. And then even if the guy gets hung up on something and just kind of stuck and asking a question, like, man, do you think this is, and it's like, well, yeah, I mean yeah, cool. And I'm like, dude, on vocals?
Or
are we really?
Or even worse, when they ask a question and you hit the talk back, 3 band members start giving ideas, and it's like, oh God, no.
Yeah. So I guess the thing is, like, how do you prevent people from getting in some scenarios like that? And so the first one is definitely like, if the guy's not willing to do the preparation beforehand, that's a freaking red flag. Yeah. And then what would be like maybe like a few questions that somebody could ask?
The first question I would ask, especially when talking to a producer, is do they have a studio they like to work with? And not necessarily in this order. Do they have a studio they like to work with? How do you like to prepare for the session? Find out how they like to do pre-production. Do they want to? I mean, I've done shit on Zoom. I've done shit. I like to do shit in person just because we get to hang out, have dinner, get to really talk and bullshit, that sort of stuff. Find out what they like musician-wise. If say you've got a band, do they want to ixnay the band and use studio musicians, or are they comfortable? Like, if it is a band, I want to use the band, even though maybe I could hear things, quote unquote, technically better with studio musicians. It's the band. That's what Lloyd taught me. It's the band. If that's their band and they're all in on the band, use the band, and help them become better, help them find themselves, and stuff. And I'm like, okay. And I'm so glad I learned that. But stuff like that, or if the person's a solo songwriter, ask this is be verbal with the style of record you want to make. Don't like at the artist should be like, if they don't want fiddle, if they don't want steel, say that. That sort of stuff. Like if we're going into our world, like I don't plan on having a fiddle player, so I don't want fiddle on the record. Like have verbal because the producer, you might even get along with the producer, and the producer be like, okay, we'll do twin fiddles here. And you want to say,
So
well,
don't
no,
be
no.
afraid to say, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Because
And
in my experience, they will use technical jargon and just information that you don't know to almost intimidate you into what you will and won't. But liking or not liking something has nothing to do with the technicality of it.
yeah.
Well, I mean, you said you were going for this type of record. That type of intimidation thing where it's like, I don't like that.
Yeah. And
being willing to, I didn't have the confidence to say, I don't like it.
and making sure you have somebody that is okay with that, because Tucker is the perfect example. When we were in the studio, so Tucker brought his bass player, and then it was Les Lawless on drums. Harmeyer played baritone on the whole record. And then what's funny is I think everybody was shocked that when I talked to people in the industry that have already heard the record, they're like, you had Tucker play lead guitar. And I was like, yeah, he's a lead guitar player. I didn't need I wanted him because he has his own style, and it's definitely makes the record its own thing. And I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm just going to have him play lead. I don't need to have another player. But there was one song where the band felt this one groove, and Tucker was like, I don't like it. And I was just like, tell you what, let me cut this one groove. Let me cut a basic track of this one groove. We'll find it. We'll find the tempo. Do it this way. And then he heard it back and he goes, that's really cool, but I don't like it for the song. And I was like, perfect. All right, everybody, let's start over.
Beautiful.
Same chords, but now, and then what ended up being a cool, groovy song ended up being Les playing a kick drum with mallets on a thing, holding a shaker. And we kept it acoustic, but kept a little bit of the funky bass line movement in there.
Yeah, but it was a little straighter.
And then, but it was a straight, slower, but straighter songwriter thing.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm glad you stood up for I'm glad you let me try what I was hearing, but then let's hear it's your record. You've got to play these songs every night. You've got to, and you know what you want. And there was tunes that I didn't hear fiddle on that he was like, no, even though I don't have a fiddle player in the band, I do want twin fiddles on this, and I want a fiddle here. And I was like, okay, cool, and got Cody Braun to play fiddle on it and stuff like that, and it was great. And, it's not being afraid to come up with like things that you have hardcore set on your mind. Don't let anybody convince you on something without hearing it. Like this is how it's going to be.
That was money.
It's just, that's it. They've got to, I want those ideas. Lloyd taught me that. Lloyd would be like, just give me a chance on this and let me play this and blah, 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 and do that. And then sometimes it's like, cool. And then sometimes even Lloyd would be like, nah, I don't like that. I just need to hear it. So I'm always like, one of my things is like, just let me hear it one time like this.
You will almost spend more time deciding on whether or not you should try it than just trying it.
They're just trying it.
I get so sick of it where it's like you spend 5 minutes talking about whether or not we should try it, whether or not we're going to like it. I'm like, dude, I am over this conversation. Play it.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
I want to, and I'll always come out first and say, it's in my head. I need to shit can this idea. So everybody just change this chord to this, hold this note out. I need to hear it not work, so I cannot wonder if it's going to work.
I need to hear it not work.
And a lot of times it doesn't work, but I needed to hear that because in my head, it was like, it was just back there talking. But then sometimes it may not work, but then the guitar player will be like, well, hey dude, if you do that and do this, I can play this. And then all of a sudden it turns into a whole part. And then it's just like, well, boom, there we got there. My job isn't to tell you what to play. My job is hopefully to inspire you to play something. So like Tucker's record has a lot of groovy bass lines. And he was like, he goes, hey man, I'm going to bring my bass player. He's a really good bass player, but I don't know if his potential has been tapped. So the first song, I was just like, hey, dude, check out, what if your bass line did something like this? And he'd be like, okay. And then he'd make it his own. And I'm like, boom, there we go. And then Les would just lock in with that. And it was just like, oh, fuck yeah. We're going to build with this. Like, I'm in a 70s mode right now. So I want things to shake asses. But I also
tone wise too.
Yeah, because like I've got a like an old 51P with flats that I know have been on it since at least when I got it in I think '08, and never changed the flat wounds on it.
Yeah.
And the person that
the
had
strings
it
on your
me,
bass.
yeah, he goes, I know those strings were put on in 2001, and I was like,
that's
cool.
crazy.
I don't plan on changing them. It's just got that tone and that thud, and it's like that's what I want.
So how about drums? You like those tones too?
Yeah, I like close and kind of dead, and I like a low snare. I like a really low snare.
Interesting.
And so, like,
okay, so a little less splatty.
Yeah,
or I guess it's got just a thump to it, but still splat.
It's got a thud to it, and
it's got a thuddy splat.
It's the Bill. What is it? What was his name? Bill.
Kind of makes me feel like Violet.
Yeah, dude. Can this sound a little more brownish green?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Totally.
But it's funny because it's like I like a lot of
honestly, dude, why did that's so funny. You were being like sarcastic, but like brownish green for whatever reason. A thuddy splatty snare. I don't know why I could identify that as brownish green.
Oh yeah.
I kind of could.
It's just, and it's not the brown note. It's just like,
so funny.
But what's funny though is that everybody interprets it differently. So when you tell a musician that they're going to have something in their head that is like, oh, you say that. Okay, I'm going to do this. And there's a song, I'll play a clip, a rough clip on Darby's record that I knew I wanted the whole song to be side stick. And I was like, it doesn't need to build. It just needs to be side stick groove. There was actually 2 songs on the record that I want this, but this one, Keo was like, hold on. He goes, let's track it. But he told the engineer to just have an overhead and a close mic. And he had this tambo, a headed, like, calfskin headed tambo that has a low thud to it. And so he played it like a drum kit.
The tambo?
The tambourine. And then the whole band played to that. We did a couple quick little punches. And then he goes, okay, let me play the kit. So then he played the whole kit side stick until a bridge section and the outro. Then he went to snare, but had a really low thudded snare. And he goes, you can either keep the tambo in there, or that was just a good reference for everybody to play to. And what's crazy is I think in the final mix will be this way. The tambourine is hard panned on the left with the thud, and I treated it like a drum kit. And then the drum kit is hard panned on the right.
Whoa.
And then that way the upright's in the middle with the vocal.
Whoa.
And then the doubled acoustics and piano and stuff are doing all this chord
shit. But you would perceive it as there's
you think of it as 2 drum kits.
Oh, you do.
You think of it in your, like when I listen to it in the car and headphones, I'm like, I feel like there's a kick and snare going on the left side, but then there's a side stick with a bigger drum kit with rooms on it on the other side. And I was just like, fucking Keo, like, how'd you come up with this? Like, this is brilliant. And he goes, this is one of my, like, I always fly with it to any session. And he goes, you never know when he goes, and it all started off because I think he was doing shit with Rodney Crowell, and Rodney wanted him to just play percussion on stage. And so he brought this one and then and he goes, instead of one of those djembes, boom, he goes, I just learned how to play it. So it had a full beat. And I was like, motherfucker, this is amazing.
Yeah, talk about a producer.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole idea is like the great players. Like, I just think the producer thing is a little odd because it's like if you got good enough players, like they're all self-producing to a certain degree.
Well, and a good producer has his players.
Sure.
That's always my thing. And it's like
a great general contractor.
Yeah. That's it. And my 2 main steel dobro players are Zach Moulton, because we spent years on the road together and we built each other up in the studio doing all the old Silverado Moonpies shit. And then Jeff Queen, because now he's playing with Reckless and Robert Earl and stuff like that, and Steve Earle. But we were in the studio together so much, and it's just like, so we just know each other, and it's like, I know that whatever ideas I come up with, they're going to make way fucking better, than what I would play if I were a steel player. Like, I know what I want, make it fucking cooler. Be you.
Yeah.
Don't be what I need. Be you and play you. I'm going to tell the position I want, where I want. Maybe if I want long notes, the lick here or answering this, but still, I want it to be that musician playing.
It's great, dude.
That's, I think, how it should be.
Hell yeah, man. Well, that's a good place to stop it. I freaking appreciate you taking the time to chat
blast,
and talk.
Man.
Yeah. I'm really excited to like get to know you better too.
Let's fucking make something together.
I'm in, dude.
Dude, this would be a fucking blast wherever you want to do it, wherever you want to cut it, whatever songs. Send me fucking demos.
I'm on a journey now to just work with like everybody I can, from players to producers, and then like writing songs. I've really tried to target a lot of like great players that it's almost like my biggest turn on now creatively is when I go like, you want to try to write some songs together? And they go, oh, dude, I'm not a songwriter. And I'm like, okay, let's write songs together.
Let's write something.
Yeah.
Well, and my whole thing, Mike McClure got me into songwriting. He's the one that was just like, we were making Garage, and I had like thrown in some words here and there, some lines here and there on other people's stuff. But he was the one that was like, there's a song on Foam called Fool's Holiday, and he had a riff and the first line. And then we just fucking, boom, went back and forth because we had time to kill. And then Calling All Cars was after a long session. We were both, had a couple drinks in us. And what was going to be a stupid song, he started like, somebody got drunk, drove their car down in a ditch, leaving the bar. And then we just started riffing off each other. And we're like, oh, this is a serious song. Like, holy shit. Like, we like this. Yada, yada, cut it. But he's the one that was just like, man, keep writing. I like your lines. I like how you think. And so we had done all this shit together. And then I sat in here and there. And then we had made Silverado Steak Night at the Prairie Rose. And Mike and I had it was the first record we did together. We knew how we wanted to do the record. He was coming in every day was a different song, play it for the band. We'd work up the arrangements, work up the parts, go in the studio and cut it. So it's when Yellow Dog was on the river in Wimberley. Everybody's staying there, so sometimes the song would come fast. Sometimes it would take forever. But by the end of the whole thing, we had the full record done. And then before that song came out, I was like, man, you and John Bauman should do a song together and write a song together, and we'll cut it as a duet just for fun. We can play it in Steamboat. And so got them together. They were starting to write what became Country Music's Dead. They were just kind of sitting there. And so I just started shouting lines out to Mike. And then Mike and I were just riffing back and forth. And we're like, okay. And we wrote Country Music's Dead. John had a few lines in there. And then Mike and I were like, man, that worked great. He goes, I don't like co-writing, but that just worked. Like, we know each other. And so then before Steak Night came out, we were already talking about what became Cheap Silver and Solid Country Gold. And so when we had to write that record so the string parts could be written. So then when we went to Abbey Road, we could cut it and, do all that sort of shit. But then Mike and I were like hyper tweaking all the lyrics. And then it was just that. So then as a producer, I guess got the confidence there to, when I was producing other stuff, to be like, I don't like this line. I don't like this. And just be like, I think you need to work on that line. And those artists started, well, hey, what do you think should go there? And then I started doing that. And then most of the time with those artists, then it would be after we'd get done a record, then it would be like, hey, I got a verse and a chorus. You want to help me finish this? And so they'd send me a voice memo. And then over text message and stuff, we'd finish songs and stuff like that. That's how I really got into the songwriting thing. And then with my wife, when we started really dating, it was right at the end of 2020. And the first time we hung out, we co-wrote 2 songs.
Whoa.
And that are on this upcoming record. And it's funny. It's just like we had that thing back and forth where she would just like come up with an idea. And there's one song on here that's one of my favorites that like she was in Nashville co-writing with a bunch of people. And I was taking meetings and just doing all that sort of shit. And we both came back to the Airbnb together and we had a place to be later that night. And so she was on a call and I was doing something else. And I was on my computer and I could hear her doing something. And she was like, I think I just wrote a chorus. And I was like, oh, I like that. And then like 30 minutes later, I was like, play these chords and sing these lines. And I'm a horrible singer, but I was like kind of getting impressed. And I was like, oh, that's a song. Like, she's like, I love this verse. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I was like, who else was around? And I was like, well, let's get them to do the second verse because they're here, and we played it for them. And it was like, holy shit. And so that song's on the record right now. Mason Lively, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a song that the three of us wrote because we were all around each other. But it was just like that, like spontaneity of everybody. Because Mason was writing too with a bunch of different songwriters in Nashville. And we were in this world 2 or 3 years ago. And it was just like, it just happened. And so that's how all my co-writing has become. Co-writing is just maybe change a line or two here. But then it's like with that artist, we just have something comfortable. So new stuff is coming up.
I think
That's
there's a
right, yeah.
connection that happens if you're open to criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever's doing the criticizing, like if it works, there's like a trust that happens there.
Especially I have with Darby and with Harmeyer. I could never tell you who wrote what line because we were just trying to get the better lines,
Beautiful.
whatever it was.
Didn't
And
matter.
it was just like, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what makes the cooler fucking song.
Yep.
And stuff like that, and that's why I think we do cool shit together, because it's not like, that's my line, that's your line, that's my line. It's just like, whatever's best for the fucking song, let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, and like kind of in any creative endeavor, my little test is typically to say, like, I will honestly, like, if you are, so like work with a producer or something, go to dinner, I'll usually test things that like, I mean, if I'm being honest, I love playing poker. So like I will like probably say some things that I think they might disagree with.
Okay, yeah.
Not like anything like super deep, but I'll like be like, I kind of like this, or maybe trying something like this, engage their reaction. And it's that initial, like, if their default position when they hear something that they maybe don't agree with, if their default position is, I'm less interested in working with you. When your default position is like eyebrows up, like,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, that's what's always funny is that
It just shows your openness to.
through Lloyd, I've always been like, unless it's something insane that is harmful to human beings,
Right.
it's always going to be yes.
Right. Sure.
It's always going to be yes. Oh, okay, let's try that.
Yeah.
It's just like fucking A.
Dude, it's funny how much that thing from Lloyd has had an impact on so many different guys. Because even now, though, there's like a couple guys that I've worked with that like I know they've worked with Lloyd, and because I saw that too. Like he produced my first record, but he's obviously like so genuine about it. I guess that's the thing. Is like when you sense somebody just being a yes man and it's disingenuous, then it can also be like, all right, dude, I also want you to shoot me straight.
Yeah. Well, and
so it's
like,
tough. It's like a touchy.
Well, and I think when it comes to that, when somebody, you got to have a decent BS meter.
Yeah. Okay.
So when it's just like, okay, this is bullshit. But also, you kind of want to try shit.
Yeah.
Because part of the collaboration is your mind works differently than mine does. And so, sure, go ahead. That sounds insane, but let's go for it. And it's the same way with sometimes I need to try shit. It's probably fucking insane and dumb. And why do I want to split a bar there or do this? But then you never know what's going to happen. There's a song on Darby's that we wanted it to be more bluegrassy style, like full band bluegrass. I don't know. But I was like, we're going to have to add a bar in here. Trust me, it's going to be weird to listen to until you hear how, because I'm thinking as a bluegrass player now. So I'm like, they're going to hold an extra bar here so a mandolin can fill, so a guitar can fill and do that, and then once it happened, when it finally clicked, it was like, oh, okay, now I know what you're saying. And it's like, yeah, I want to do this because I want to show off the musicians.
Yeah, a lot of trust though
And
to just say, okay,
yeah,
okay.
you know, and she is that. We have that together. You
Mhm.
know, it's just like where it's like I'm gonna this. Just trust me on these chord changes. Trust me on this. You have the melody. I don't want to fuck around with the melody. There is something that isn't a gospel song, but I feel like it's a very uplifting song that she wrote. It's gonna be the last song on the record. But I was like, we're gonna put the flat seven, gospel flat seven in the verses because it just needs to be there. It needs to have that lift. Or a song yesterday, one way she sang it, she was always making the top of the chorus, the end of the top of the chorus line go to a seven. And I was like, man, I think the first line, one time she sang it all the way through, going to the root. And I know she didn't want that, but I gave her a rough mix of it with it.
Because you were gonna go to the 7 later in the chorus?
Well, yeah.
And you wanted to like pay off or something?
And I wanted the
Okay.
payoff. I wanted, since it's a 4411, 4411, 4511 chorus, I wanted the first one to be major so that later on there, especially when we add harmonies to it, it's a breakup song, but the beginning of the chorus has this kind of uplifting thing and everything. And she was like, she immediately texted back and she goes, I don't want that melody on the first line of the choruses. And I was like, okay, let me play it for you with the melody you normally do. And then she was like, yeah, that's what I like. But now I miss it. And I was like, aha. So I just needed you to hear it,
But hear it.
because, and then she's like, oh my God, we could do some really cool harmony shit on this. And I was like, yeah. And plus, in what the song is about, it gets this weird uplifting thing. And the band actually, the bass and one of the guitars does a push that the band doesn't do the push until the very last chorus. But I wanted subliminally people to hear this push. So if you have this major lift with certain instruments doing the push, then in the keychain major lift, it's going to go this direction and stuff. And you're just going to have a feeling and stuff. But she had to hear it and then miss it, you know?
I love to think that I'm not a nerd. But like you talking about that stuff just fires me up.
Oh, dude.
And I don't.
And that whole song too was one that I was like, okay, the verses and the choruses are all the same. But in the sense of it's 4411, 4411, the verses are 4411, 4411, 4455, back to the 4 for a pre-chorus, and then the chorus hits on the 4 again, 4411.
Okay.
So I was like, but melodically it's fucking great. And
That's hard to do.
And it is.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? On the verses, I was like, check this out. I was like, trust me on this, babe. And then I go to the piano player as we're playing it the first time. I said, I know the chart says this, but let's do something where it's instead of 4411, the 4s are 4, 4 over 3, 2, 5, 11, 11. So it's a walk down.
Oh, sure.
So instead, it's simple walk down, and everybody can play what they're going to do. And I was listening to a lot of Little River Band, and there's a song that does that, and I was like, "This is." I don't want it to be this, but this.
No,
is
but it
kinda
made
what
it
I'm thinking
much
of.
more sweeping.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I was like, don't change your melody at all. It's going to be
Yeah.
cool." But then she changed into something really cool because I was like, "But you can hold those same notes over
Inspired,
that."
yeah.
It's that sort of stuff. But then I said that way, when you go back to the 4, we're going to do a break. The piano is going to have this big chord and then go ronk. Kick drum's going to hit, and then when the big 4 hits again, we're going to go to that major lift on the vocal, and it fucking worked. And
Yeah,
I was just
dude.
like, oh yes,
No better feeling.
yeah,
It kicks the pants off of even people liking it.
yeah. And what's great is the chorus does end on a 5 before, so the head riff and the turnaround starts on a 2 minor, and it's a 2 minor 4 5 1 walk down to 6 2 minor 4 5 1. That's the intro. Turnaround is half that. So in the second chorus, so yeah, the end of the chorus is 44 55, and then it would go to the 2 minor. But the end of the second chorus, it goes 44 55. Then, because in your mind we've been hanging on the 4 to go to there, the solo starts on the 5. So it goes 44 55 55. But that's actually the new 4 because I went from a B flat to key of C. And so Now,
So it was a key change.
so it's a key change, and you're just hearing.
So is that like what? So the melody is like in like a modal sort of thing.
So, well, no. So now, basically, the top of the solo, she could hold out the note that she normally does because the note she would normally hold out was over a 5 chord going into a 2 minor.
Mm-hmm.
So she could hold what the 5 of the 5 chord is over it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but now she could hold that note because that 5 is the new 4.
Do y'all end up going back?
And so, no. So
Okay.
then we stay in the key change, and you don't realize really it's a key change until we do the pre-chorus again. But now the pre-chorus is up a whole
Yeah.
step. And it's just like,
Yeah, but you just snuck it in there.
Yeah.
Mm.
And because I don't want the listener to be like, what the fuck? But I want the listener to be like, what the fuck?
Dude, I've got a song specifically in mind. Let me make this about me. I've
Yeah,
got
do
a
it.
song specifically in mind that does I don't know what happens. Like I can't, because I'm like, I had to close my eyes when you were talking about that to like try to just visualize and like stay with you, you know?
Yeah.
And tracking, but not nearly at your level, right? But I have one that does some what I think is pretty sophisticated, but it came to me just very organically. It wasn't like let's do something really cool, you know?
Yeah.
Not at all. And very like a flow state kind of thing. And then now it's like I don't know exactly what's going on, and there's definitely some groove stuff that's pretty bizarre. And I think we should freaking do it together.
Dude, I love that. That would be fucking
Because like
awesome.
hearing you even explain that was just so gnarly.
Oh, and it's funny because most of the time I'm just writing it down, and I'm like, and I'll be like, musicians, trust me on this.
Yeah.
And it's going to be one of those.
So
and
cool.
There's another song that we have a key change. There's 2 songs with key changes on her record. And what I did at the other one to go to the key change, to go up a whole step, is at the end of the solo, the way I had the solo written, the last lines of the solo was a 2 minor. But at the end, I have the steel. I have an extra 2 measures of 2, but I make go from a 2 minor of 2 measures and then a 2 major. So the steel then goes to the major.
Whoa.
And then you hit the top of the chorus, the new chorus, and it's just like, and you kind of don't realize it's a key change. You just think it's something cool musically until the second chord, and everybody hits this big diamond, and I've got the guitar doing this up rake, and it's just like it hits your face, and you're like, oh fuck, like what just happened here? And that's where she's pushing, but it's real big diamonds, and the band comes in, and I'm like,
Unbelievable, dude.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
dude, music is so much fun.
So cool.
And especially when you're not worried about what you're catering to. You're not following any trends. You're just making music because you want to sell it. You want to go out and play it. So you're making a record that you want to go out and play to fans.
100%.
That's what it's about.
Agreed. Dude, thank you.
That was a blast. Sorry we went another 30 minutes.
No. No, I love it. Thank y'all for listening. Adam Odor. Am I saying that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Odor.
And then Yellow Dog Studios.
Yellow Dog Studios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Total G. Gangsta.
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 What up? What?
All right. See y'all.
Later.
Adios.